Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Spiritually Speaking. I am Dee May, and today I have a beautiful guest, Ann Alexson, with us today. So I'm very happy that you're here, Ann. I'm super excited about this conversation, and I'm going to let you tell people what it is that you do.
Hello, Dee. I'm so excited to be here, and thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. So just for the people who don't know me, my name is Ann Alexson, as you said, and I like to call myself a mystic, and I also like to call myself a humanist and a futurist. And, as we talk, some of those things might come out and the reasons why I call myself those things. But my most important thing, and the thing that I love more than anything else, is the fact that I am a direct voice channel of what I call all that is, and I'll explain more about that as we go, I'm sure. I'm also the author of this book, Mind Your Own Vibration, Be Unfuckwithable, and it actually shares the teachings of all that is that came through me in my first awakening 15 or so years ago. And gosh, I've been around the planet for a long, long time, and there's a lot I could say, so I'm just going to stop right there.
I think it's great, and I love the title of your book. I love it. I love the subtitle too because it's all about that minding your own vibration, and it's the magic that is everything as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, absolutely. One of the first things that, I mean, there were so many first things that all that is taught me. But one of them was that in order to be happy, because I was seeking happiness right at the beginning of my
Mhm.
journey, and my calling for help from whatever the universe was at that time was always, how do I find happiness? How do I be happy? I want to be happy. What do I need to do? And one of the first things that I was told was that there's 3 steps to be happy. Raise your own vibration, mind your own vibration, and then take your vibration or your frequency everywhere you go,
Mhm.
right? Very
Yeah,
simple.
very
And then,
simple.
so that's actually what the teachings are all about. In fact, there's 3 parts in the book, and those are the 3 parts in the book. It's really about inner peace. I
Mhm.
was drawn to first become the frequency of inner peace and then to share that. And that actually, I came to know that as my purpose.
Yeah, and I know a little bit about your backstory because I did watch an interview with you and we chatted a little bit prior to this. So, can you tell people what the inspiration for your book was outside of the all that is?
Yeah, absolutely. So, in actual fact, I mentioned that I had this awakening 15 years ago and I was downloaded with the teachings of all that is. I then spent more than a decade just very much focused on becoming the frequency of those teachings. And I had a book from the moment of that awakening, of that first download. I knew it was a book. Over the years, I've been talking about writing a book. I've always known there's a book. I've always known the title of the book because that was part of the teachings. And I was actually got to the 10-year mark and I was despairing of the fact that I'm never going to write this book. I just can't do it.
Mhm.
It's not in me to write this book. I tried so many times. I spent thousands of dollars on coaches to help me write this book, and I just never got around to it. And then, unfortunately, what happened was that December 22, yeah, December 22, I'd been caring for my mother for 6 months. She was very ill and with cancer and a brain tumor and a various things. So I went and I was caring for her. And one morning I was sitting at her breakfast table. She was still in bed. It was like 6 o'clock in the morning, I think it was, around 6 o'clock, very close to that time. I don't know why I was up that early because I'm not really a morning person. But for some reason, I thought, you know what, I'm going to start writing that book today. And so I was actually at my computer typing away and starting the first chapter of the book, the introduction to the book. And at the same time, my son, who had been living with bowel cancer for 3 years, he was in his home, also in his bed, being cared for by his wife. And so I started the chapter talking about that. And then I wrote probably half of that chapter, and then it all fell apart again. You know, they both died within a month of each other. And I lost the desire again to write it. But at the same time, I felt like I had to write it because I'd been telling my mum and I'd been telling my son for years and years I'm writing a book. And my mum used to say to me, "Have you written the book yet? Are you writing the book?" And so it was about a month after my son died, and I came across a coach who helps people to write their books. And even though the time was completely inappropriate, even though many in my family judged me for taking the time to write this book when I should have been whatever I should have been, I knew it was the right time. And it literally poured through me in a week, the
Amazing.
bare bones of it. And then I spent a couple of months massaging it and adding another chapter because one night, you'll love this story. One night I was sitting here in my cottage and reading through the book, thinking that I'd finished the book, and I had a visit from my son.
Oh, wow.
I literally had a visit from my son, and he said to me there was a chapter missing and that I needed to include it, even if it was going to hurt me to do so.
Mm.
So I wrote that chapter. It was about he showed me in that moment. Yeah, I can feel that
Yeah.
too.
Ooh.
He showed me in that moment the karma that we'd been living out together
Yeah.
and the reason for it. And it was phenomenal. It was very, very hard. I wrote that chapter. I included it in the book. It bared my soul,
Mm.
literally,
Yeah.
like everything that's wrong in my life is now knowledge to everybody.
Mhm.
And again, some family members took it, his wife took it very badly, that particular chapter. So things have not been the best between the two of us since that moment, since she read that chapter. But he told me to write it. He told me I had to, and so I did. And so I'm just living with the consequences of that until they pass. I suspect that she needed to be angry with someone, and I had to be that person. And so he created that moment for her to have that thing that she could not like me for, and have
Right.
anger toward me to help get through. Or at least that's the meaning that I've given it. That's the
Right.
understanding that I have. So yeah, it was literally poured through me chapter by chapter, except that one missing chapter.
Yeah.
I sat and I started with the introduction. I continued where I'd left off, even though they had now both moved on. I continued where I'd left off, wrote chapter by chapter by chapter by chapter in perfect order.
Hmm.
It just came out that way. I've always said it's already written. I just need to let it come out. And for
Right.
some reason, with the passing of them both and my really deep desire to do this thing that they both were constantly encouraging me to do, and get my work out into the world. Uh, yeah, I let go and I let it come through.
Yeah. And
You
that's
know,
and I'm
so
so sorry. I told you previously, but I'm so sorry about your losses because I know how profound that is. And I know there are so many people who will, as Wayne Dyer would say, should all over you. Um, when they think that you aren't doing things in the right way. One thing that I have found about grief is we all have our own way of doing it. There's no wrong way. I have a dear friend of mine who lost her husband in 2014, and it was so hard on her. And she kept telling me, people are saying I should do this and I should do that. And I said, you know what you need to be doing? You know what you should be doing? She goes, what? Like it was one more person telling, I said, you should be doing whatever you want to do. This is your grief. You get to, I said, as long as you're eating and bathing, then what difference does it make what else you're doing? It doesn't have to. Everyone handles it differently. For instance, when my grandpa Coke passed away, my mom's dad, my grandma, his wife, got rid of everything like immediately, like got rid of it all. And some people would look at that and go like, oh my, like he hasn't even been in the ground very long and you're getting rid of everything. That's what she needed to do for her own self. And now my friend, she didn't get rid of anything. She still sleeps, and he's been gone since 2014. She still sleeps in his old t-shirts that he had, and she had a pillow made out of some of his clothes, and she is, to my knowledge, still sleeps with his box of ashes in bed with her. And some people would be
Yeah.
like, oh, you shouldn't be doing that. Yeah, you should. If that's what you feel like you need to do, and it doesn't matter who thinks what about it. And I think my personal opinion, who, some people may agree with me and some may not, and that's okay. But my personal opinion is that I feel like it's beautiful that you wrote your book when you did. That was your way of being able to honor your mother and your son. And I don't understand how anyone can look at that and consider that to be wrong. That's just how I look at it.
Well, I don't really understand it either, but I also know that there's nothing going wrong here.
Right.
It's giving me everything that I need, even if I don't know what that is or how it's going to play out. It's giving everyone what they need. That's because that's what life is. There's no mistakes being made. It's just what happens. And I love that you mentioned Dr. Wayne Dyer, because I have a beautiful relationship with Dr. Dyer. I saw him just a few weeks before he passed, actually. He was here in Australia. But the reason that I say that I have a lovely relationship with him is that he, not long after he passed, I had a visitation, and he showed me the cover of my book.
Oh, that's
And so that was
amazing.
just another thing saying to me, write this book.
Yeah.
So I love that. He's one of in fact, he was my introduction to spirituality all those years ago. I was having a horrible experience going through a divorce. I had a 1-year-old child. I don't think he was even one at the time. I was traveling with family who don't approve of me in so many ways because I'm different than them.
Yeah.
And I was sick at the time. I had an ear infection. The tsunami was happening in Thailand. There was just so much going on, and I was just starting to come into all this energy stuff, feeling energies and things, because I'd never been in that world before. And I went into a bookstore in country Australia and found a little book of Wayne Dyer's that was called 10 Secrets for Success and Inner Peace. And I bought it. And right next to it on the shelf was a book by Abraham Hicks. And in one of Wayne Dyer's books, he had actually mentioned Abraham.
Mhm.
So I bought that as well. And I didn't read that for like a year, 6 months to a year. I even took it with me on a plane to Vegas, which, by the way, if you don't know, is like 14 hours from here on a plane.
Wow.
And I still didn't read it. I still hadn't read it by the time I came back. My whole intention was to use that plane time to read
Yeah.
this book, and I still hadn't read it, right? And then I got really, really sick when I got back, and I was laid up in bed, and I opened up that book and I started reading it, and I was just a mess from the first chapter. I started crying. There was this sense of homecoming, I guess, this sense of this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know what that was.
Yeah.
I just,
Amazing.
so, so yeah, I love that you mentioned him.
Yeah,
So I could share that story.
he's been my rock. I'm telling you, I've been, when I first started getting into a lot of, I had this dark night of the soul, so I really had to dive into, I need to help myself. Well, I couldn't afford a coach or anything. So I went to YouTube and I listened to various people, Joseph Murphy, Marissa Peer, Mary Morrissey, Bob Proctor, and I found Wayne Dyer and I fell in love. And I'm like, he not in the like romantic kind of way, but just as in appreciating him as a human. He like he's so amazing, and I have had actually visitations from him since he's crossed over, and I've never met him, but I feel like I know him, and he's come into my meditation a couple different times, and I felt him around and like heard him say things to me occasionally, just and I recommend him to anyone who is like, what do I need to do? Give me one thing I need to listen to or read. And I'm like, Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life by Wayne Dyer. Every time,
Yeah,
he
yeah,
just get
absolutely.
some Wayne Dyer. You'll be okay.
No, so I used to work in the city, and I used to I had him on audio. You know, he was doing classes on audio. It was like a series of 10 of them. I literally turned my car into, I used to call it Swift University, because it was a
Oh, I
Suzuki
love it.
Swift. I used to call it Swift University. So that would be what I'd listen to on the way to work and on the way home. And I just love, he's such a powerful energy still in
Yeah,
this world.
he is. He absolutely is. And so just I feel like if I had met him in person, and you have met him in person, but I always felt like I could bump into him and he would be that exact person that I see right there. It's not like he's so real, and just loves
Yeah,
everybody, and that just exudes out of him. And you just feel that. And he's been such an inspiration to me for sure. So
yeah,
I love
me
that you love
too.
him too.
Yay!
Yay.
Anxiety Appreciation Club.
Yeah, right. So tell us a little more about what you do, Anne. I'm fascinated because as I told you, I have always been kind of on the fence about Chandler's. I'm very honest about that. And I was with you from the first moment I talked to you, because there's a lot of, and not just with Chandler's, but with a lot of things in this world right now, unfortunately, there's a lot of shenanigans. I'll go with that word. And there was something different about you. And that's what made me want to have you on, because I strive to have nothing but authenticity and integrity on my podcast. And I felt that from you. And so I wanted to have this chat with you. So I'd love for you to tell us more about what that is, what it means, how you do it, and all of the things.
Well, first of all, I really appreciate the words that you've just said. Thank you. My goal is to change the way we think about authenticity, because there's a lot of people that talk about authenticity, but there's not a lot of people that live it.
That's very true.
It's part of their daily life. And so I strive to do that as much as I possibly can. I'm a human, I'm not perfect. That's just the way it is. But I do my utmost to be authentic, to speak whatever words feel to be spoken through me, to share whatever I feel to share, to be just what I am in the moment, and to be honest about that. And it can be very uncomfortable for people,
Hmm.
which is why I live on a mountain in a little cottage all by myself. But also I've been grieving, so I've taken that time. But thank you, and I appreciate that. And so I, as I mentioned, I had not really been in the spiritual world, and I started asking how to be happy, and apparently the answer everyone wanted to tell me was to meditate. So I started to meditate, and from the first meditations that I did, I couldn't follow anyone's process. I couldn't do guided meditations. I had to find a way to just do it for myself, just to
Yeah,
be okay with whatever was happening. Again, authenticity, right?
right.
And then I started to hear a voice that seemed to be inside me, but it was also outside of me. Every time I stopped to meditate and I got to a couple of minutes in, I would hear these words in a strange accent. We are all that is, all that was, and all that ever will be.
Mm.
And I was kind of curious, what's that all about? So I went searching. And I found out about people who were called channelers, because again, I'd never, ever, ever. I was raised Catholic. um, so yeah, I started to hear those words every time. And then I started to receive information from that voice, like to help me in my life,
Mhm.
to help me find the happiness that I was seeking. And then I had a moment where I actually had that awakening where the teachings were downloaded into me, and I became aware that I was going to have to open up my throat chakra and allow them to speak through me. And I'm saying allow them to speak through me as if they're a separate part of me, da 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 da. When I first started doing this 15 or so years ago, there were, Abraham Hicks was just starting to become really popular. I'd sort of followed them for a little while before that because I was trying to figure out what I was doing, and it somehow had something to do with them in some way. And so I found a group of people who channeled the same energy as them, so channeled the Abraham energy, and they held space for me. And because I was completely unaware of the whole spiritual world, I just allowed the people who were in that already to tell me what I was doing and to tell me what was channeling through me, because I was so unsure of myself. Thought I was going a little bit mad, as you do when you
Mhm.
start having these experiences. And so when it first started happening, one of them said it was such and such. So I took on that persona, that's what it was that was coming through me. But to me, it's always been, we are all that is, all that was, and all that ever will be. So I've always internally called them all that is, right? So I went through phases with it of stepping into my own power with it, stepping into the truth of it for me,
Mhm.
regardless of what everyone else thought it should be. The number one question I used to get from people when I first started doing this was, yeah, but who are they? And there's no answer to that for me.
Right,
We are all that is, all that was, and all that ever will be, which
right,
leaves nothing out.
right,
So they are all of those names and none of those names all at the same time.
right.
Because when I do work with clients, I can have someone's grandmother come in. I can have, although I told them right at the beginning I wasn't going to do dead people, and that's how it's mainly been, right? I just get a sense of them more than anything else. But oftentimes someone's star family will show up here. I see them in my third eye, a group of usually 7 beings from whatever star system. I've had experiences with alien forms that I don't actually believe in, but the client believes in,
That's
which
amazing.
is an interesting thing to have that happen, because I
Yeah,
don't believe in them. I still believe in them, but I know that they exist for her because she fully believed in them. I've had Jesus multiple times, Mary, all the archangels, whatever wants to show up shows up, because they're all part of the field of all that is.
right.
There's no separation
Yeah.
in that, right? And we are simply a physical manifestation of that. And
Mhm.
as we do the work to raise our frequency, we get closer to it. We open up our superconscious mind, that third level of the mind that, not a lot of people talk about. We open that up through our imagination, which is the gateway to that. And it all opens up in front of us. We step into the field of oneness and infinite potential.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I answered the question, but
You did.
I
You
went all
answered
sorts.
it beautifully, or at least I got it. And I hope that most of our listeners did as well. And if not, please go back and listen to it again because you're going to get more every single time you listen. And I love that you embraced the authenticity of the original message that you got because it's a human thing. It's the logical mind that wants to label everything. But what is it? How long did it take? Which direction did it go? Right, left, center, what? And it's not logical and it's not easy to explain, and sometimes you just can't explain something that is truly inexplicable, that has no boundaries and no borders, and is just all that is and all that was and all that ever will be. I mean, that's so expansive and encompassing. How can
Yes,
you
yeah.
define that in these trite little ways that we do as humans, you know?
I love that. And I think that is a perfect way of saying it all. And what I do know is that when you have done the work and healed your trauma or hurt or whatever you want to call it, trauma to me is subjective,
Yes.
can be big or small, it's irrelevant. In as much as it doesn't matter if it's big or it's small, it's never irrelevant in that
Right.
it's trauma.
Right.
Healing that, starting to do the work to raise your frequency, and you are becoming more one with the field of oneness, or the field of all that is, or the field of the Akashic records. It's all the same thing
Mhm.
in my world. And so all you need do is open yourself up. What I do essentially is to open myself up to be of service to source and service to my client. That's
Mhm.
all I do when I come together with a client or with a group of people. And in doing so, whatever the client needs to come through for them comes through. I'll have religious people, and of course, their deity will come through
Mhm.
as part of that, because that's what they believe is out there in the non-physical field.
Right.
But I believe that I am just maybe one or two steps ahead, in that I have moved more into who we're evolving into, which is a
Mhm.
true physical manifestation of the true light that we are in the world. I call it Homo luminous. I believe that we are going through the evolution that we're going through to
Yes.
become a being of light in human form who walks on this planet in purpose and in service to
Yeah.
their purpose.
Yeah.
And so
I,
that's what I'm striving to do and to become.
yeah. I love it. I love it. And it is a journey. So how do we encourage people who are so afraid? I mean, I ask this question, I feel like a lot, but everyone has a different take on it. Because I know how frightening, I know personally how frightening it has been for me. You know, even my spiritual mentor told me one time, he's like, you are afraid that if you fully give over to this, that you're going to go crazy. He goes, you're not. So how do we encourage people who are afraid of going crazy? Or, I mean, I'm going ahead and doing the inner work myself because I want it, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
I shouldn't say I want it because I have it already. I'm enjoying the exploration of it. What would you say to people to encourage them to explore and not be afraid?
Well, look, I just want to say, I work with, in the early days of doing this, I had a lot of people come to me who actually thought they were losing their mind, including a psychiatric nurse who came to me because she was starting to hear, she was essentially, became a channel for a goddess. And so I think it's really, really important to keep yourself very, very grounded.
Mhm.
I'm very blessed in that I am just a naturally grounded person. So it's been, people say to me, even though you're way up here, Anne, in the work that you do and when you're channeling, you're still so grounded. How on earth do you do that? Well, I do things that keep me grounded. I stand on the grass in the morning under the sun coming up over the mountain in front of me. But that's not necessary, right? All that's necessary is put yourself in nature
Yeah.
and just allow the energy that wants to. We are, for me, I experience myself as a conduit between Father Sun and Mother Earth,
Mm.
and their exchange of energy comes through me. So I do a thing where I bring in the sun into my heart, I bring in the earth into my heart, and allow them to come together in their union,
Mhm.
and that keeps me very grounded. But yeah, just things that keep you grounded. Whatever foods you like to eat that keep you grounded, even if other people don't agree with those foods as being spiritual foods. And let me be very clear here. I'm a carnivore. And
Mhm.
by that, I mean, I don't eat vegetables anymore. I have not eaten vegetables for 4 years.
Wow.
I'm a carnivore, right? I just said a proper carnivore when I mean a carnivore. Now, that was a struggle for me because initially when I came into spirituality, it became clear to me that you were supposed to be vegan. So I became vegan and I got
Yeah.
very, very sick.
Right.
And so then as with everything that I do, I asked and I received the answer, and the answer was given to me.
Yeah.
And it had been hinted at me since I was a young girl. I remember having experiences with aliens and cows, right? So I strict only eat beef. I don't eat any other meat. It's just beef. Because that's what I've been instructed to do in order to keep myself so grounded while I do this work that could be very much off with the fairies, so that I don't go crazy.
Right.
But
I'm
also,
laughing because I'm like, I that's one of the things that and you are very grounded. I felt that from you, but that's one of the things that I have struggled with over the years is keeping myself grounded because I love being out here. I love it. I
oh, so do
love
I.
it. It's so much fun. And I've actually had experiences, and I've said this, on previous podcasts where I've actually like just basically had myself pushed back into my physical body. And it was not a pleasant experience because I felt like I couldn't breathe. I felt like I was drowning. I felt very confined. And it was a very interesting experience. So I've had to literally make friends with my physical body and understand that even though this is a physical, vessel that I get, my soul walks around in, that it is also spiritual. It is also spiritual. And I've been reminded here just even in the last few weeks that I'm not as limited as I've been talking about that I have been. And we talked about, phraseology earlier and how I've been being more mindful of the words that I use. And so that has been an issue that and I mean, I'm doing a lot better with it, but I do have to intentionally ground. I have to be very mindful of it because I do go to fairyland very easily and I like it there. I really like it there. So sometimes it's hard to come back and be stuck to this earth again.
And I think that's really important, actually, that you share that, and that I share what I've just shared about vegan and vegetarian and meat and all of the rules. And this is
Yeah.
what's always been, I've always had a thing about all the rules attached to spirituality,
Yeah.
because there's not supposed to be rules attached to
No.
spirituality. Yet there are groups of people, and I have actually lost clients because of the fact that I'm a carnivore,
Mm,
which must mean that I'm spiritual, okay?
right.
Which is just completely not true in any way, shape, or form, but
Right.
it's a belief system.
It is.
It's a belief system. Whatever you believe to be true is true, as I mentioned before, but also, one of the first things that all that is said to me. But the fact is that we're going through a human evolution. Humans are going through an evolution, just as we did from caveman to Homo sapien, or whatever the words are, I don't even know. But we go through these evolutions. We're going through an evolution right now, and that evolution is to become a light being in human form.
Mm,
So while it's beautiful to be out there in your light self,
yeah.
our job is actually to bring that light self inside and ground it into reality, because that's how we change the world.
That's how we change the world.
And that's why I call myself an enlightened change maker, and I believe that's where we're going. We're all going to be a being of light in human form, walking this earth on purpose and in service to our purpose.
Yeah.
I truly saw that. I saw that world. I don't know if I've shared this story with you, but early on in my experiences with all that is I used to lie in bed, even though I was channeling and, it was fun, da da da, and talking to trees and talking to mosquitoes and all sorts of things. I also didn't feel like I had I knew that there was something that I was missing. I
Hmm.
didn't have that sense of purpose that I knew there's something I'm here to do.
Yeah.
What is the thing that I'm here to do? I feel it so much. I feel it inside every cell of my body. And so I used to lie in bed at night and actually before falling asleep, I'd say, right, tell me what my purpose is. And I'd fall asleep, hoping that I'd wake up in the morning and it would be like, oh, I know what it is.
And it didn't
But
work
what
that way, huh?
actually happened, but it was still very magical. I'm very
Hmm.
blessed in that way. I sat down to meditate one morning, and all that is said to me, we're taking you into the future. And we traveled into the future, and I saw the world in peace. I saw the world in peace.
Amazing.
And I came back knowing what needs to change, as we all do. I mean, we all know what's wrong with the world, and we all have our own little piece of it that we're working on. Like that, some people are focused on helping to feed other people. Some people are focused on saving children. Whatever it is, my thing is the overriding thing, which is getting to this world in peace that I witnessed. And I saw that we were all beings of light in human form in service to our purpose and to each other. And so when I came back, I came back into my body and I actually felt like something had been printed into me.
Oh, wow.
This statement that I called the purpose statement, world peace through inner peace, one person at a time, and it starts with me. So that's why I took the 10 years to really do the work on myself, to do everything that I needed to do to start to have unfuckwithable inner peace. So that's what I mean by the subtitle of the book. To be unfuckwithable is to have such a strong sense of inner peace that nothing that happens to you and no one can change that. And so then, of course, I took myself through the last few years to experience that, to still be able to have that inner peace, even though I had so much grief, even though I still have things happening that I would not have chosen to have happen,
Yeah.
even though life goes right. So world peace through inner peace, one person at a time, and it starts with me. And what I then came to understand was that world peace is the purpose of all that is. All
Mm.
of us, in other words.
Yeah.
Um, inner peace, one person at a time, is my personal purpose here on the planet to help other people find inner peace. And then, of course, and it starts with me. I had to do it first.
Yeah.
So that's why I spent those 10 years very quietly working with clients, but also working on myself a lot
Oh,
and
yeah.
really learning these teachings. And I like to say becoming the embodiment of these teachings, because I know that as an enlightened change maker, you become the frequency of your purpose. And therefore, you can just simply walk into a room and the frequency of your purpose is there,
Yeah.
and people will be lifted up to it or they will move away.
Right.
And that's been my experience.
Yeah. And that's great. I love that. And I love that you said, be unfuckwithable. And because no matter, you said no one can impact that then when you have that energy and you're so firmly, in that place. And I always like to add, no matter who they are, because we have these, what I refer to as power players in
Oh,
our lives that we feel like we have to give them permission to still fuck with us no matter what. Like they're going to be allowed to mess with our happiness no matter what. Like they can be parents, they can be siblings, they can be children, they can be best friends, they can be lovers, husbands, wives, whatever. And so I love to add that little caveat of no matter who they are, they do not get to have that permission that you still get to
No, I
be
love.
happy no matter what.
Yep, I absolutely love that. And as you were talking about that, I was reminded that I used to do an event with a whole bunch of psychics and mediums and tarot readers. We'd gather in a room and people would come in and we'd talk to them. And that's where mind your own vibration became a thing,
Mhm.
because pretty much everyone who asked a question, the response would initially be mind your own vibration. In other words, stop worrying about what everyone else is doing and
Yeah,
just look at yourself. And another expression at the same time was, and it the words "be unfuckwithable" were back then, in those days, all that is used to say, put your cement boots on, right? Put your cement boots on, because in that way you can't be pushed over. You can't.
right,
So it's the same thing. You put your cement boots of peace on and no one can knock you off that,
right,
because you're just solid.
right. Yeah,
So that was a weird little expression that we used to use. Hadn't thought of that for quite a few years.
that's awesome though. And it's true because we don't, it's a choice. Happiness is a choice, and we can allow people to mess that up, or we don't have to. We get to pick that,
Yeah,
and my mom used to, if you'd asked her what she wanted, she would say, I want to be happy. I want to be happy. That's what she would always say. And I don't feel like she ever made it too happy. And I don't know if you know who Nikki Allen is, but she has these guided meditations for visiting your loved ones. And I've always been able to see spirit, but I did this meditation and I saw my mom and dad in this meditation, and my mom was so happy. I told my brother about it because it was like I've never seen her like that. She was throwing her head back and laughing. There was such joy and peace on her face, and she couldn't stop smiling and laughing. And my dad was just looking at her, and he would just smile at her because she was so happy. And it was absolutely incredible to see that, especially after feeling like she never quite got there in this life. I mean, I think she had happy moments. I do feel like she had happy moments, but overall, I don't feel like she made it to that place where she was genuinely happy,
yeah.
you know?
And it's really common. It's really common in the world. We all kind of struggle. Well, I won't say all, because I'm sure there are people who do feel that sense of happiness and joy. But, life isn't supposed to be hard, but it often is. And it's often because of what we believe.
Yes.
And what we believe is often because of the way we've been treated, or the society that we live in, or, everybody knows this these days. Um, so yeah, it's a job of work to
Hmm.
find happiness in a unhappy world. And it's a world that's getting unhappier. And yet at the same time, it's getting happier because there are people who
Yes.
are focusing on that and talking about it. The reason that I started my journey was absolutely because someone said to me, Anne, I was whinging, complaining that life was so hard. Or, I was doing what I normally did back then. And someone said to me, "And you can actually choose to be happy?" And I wanted to reach out and punch him on the face.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But instead what I did was go, you know what, I'm going to prove you wrong. And then
Yeah.
I proved myself wrong
Yeah.
as a consequence. Because yes, happiness is a choice. There is no truer statement than that. In fact, anything that you want is a choice that you get to choose.
Yeah.
But you've got to look at what you believe to be true that isn't true. And most of what we believe to be true is not true.
Very true.
We're
You're
not
so
this
right.
separate human being. We're not this separate being living in this life that has no meaning, where we're just at the behest of everyone around us and the systems around us and the rich people. For some people, there's that whole thing about the people who control the world. We're not. We're an aspect of all that is, and so are they. And
That's
so
right.
our job is to clean up our frequency, which will naturally lift up their frequency. Probably not in our lifetimes, and I've accepted that. I'm not going to have world peace in my lifetime, but I know that some aspect of me, it's going to continue the journey. And
Hmm.
it has brought me to this moment. So it never ends. And I wanted to say that that's the beautiful thing about, I love what you said about your mum and happiness, because, when we die, we become one with all that is again. So we immediately shed that sense of, I'm not enough, that
Yes.
so many of us carry, why we don't let ourselves be happy. And we're available. An aspect of our energy of whoever we lost is always there, and all you
Mm.
need to do is think about them. And
Yeah.
they're right there with you in that moment. Because when you ask, the law of attraction, when you ask, it is given, is an absolute truth. But the way that I understand that is that you're the physical manifestation. All the non-physical aspects of you, whenever you ask for help, you might call them angels, you might call them God, whatever you want to call them. They're just other aspects of you. And they literally come rushing towards you to give you the answer, or
Yeah.
to help you to heal if that's what you wish to do. So ask and know that you'll be answered
Yeah.
by the other aspects of you in non-physical, because they can't do anything without you. They can't do anything to change this world without you being in physical form on this planet.
Hmm.
All that is, we can't reach out and touch someone without you.
Yeah.
You're so important in this. It's not this important being of light that comes in and works with you. No, no, no. It's just another aspect of you. We are equals.
Yeah.
We're not greater than, greater than. We are
So
equal.
I do believe the truth. Like I feel the truth of that. So why do we interpret it as something more powerful or knowledgeable or whatever? Why do we interpret it as more than we are? Why do we do that?
Well, I think, well, exactly. And I think there's a couple of different, maybe two different things around that. The first and foremost is that when we come into human form, we experience a sense of rejection from source. And so we make that mean that we're not enough, that
Mm.
we're not lovable enough, we're not good enough, we're not perfect enough, we're not this enough, we're not that enough, right? And so that's what we carry through life, whatever our version of that is, because all of us are different,
Yes.
whatever our version is of that. So that's one part of it, right? So therefore there must be something higher than us out there that's going to help us, that's going to rescue us, that's going to whatever, right?
Yeah.
Because religion says there is a God out there who, if you're a good person, will save you.
Mhm.
Probably not until you die and go to heaven, but you know, toil through your life hating yourself, never finding happiness, because that you get the reward when you get to heaven. So we've got all the societal condition around that, right?
Mhm.
And we've got our own sense of smallness, which religion perpetuates as well, but so do so many other things.
Mhm.
We live in a place where there are assumptions that some people are more better than the rest of us,
Right.
or more whatever than the rest of us. And so we take that on.
Yes.
And I think we're coming into a time where we're starting to realize, that meme where they show the shark eating the fish and then they show the fish all in a pool together, shaped like a shark, chasing the shark.
Right.
We're coming into we're coming into that time. And so that will change things. We will start to realize, do you know what? And again, this is an absolute truth. I'm the one with all the power. In actual fact, we are all one. And if we're all one, then I'm the only one that truly exists. And everyone outside of me is a projection of what I think and believe I know to be true about myself, about others, and about everything else.
Mhm.
So if that's the truth, then I'm actually the one that holds all the power, or you're actually the one that holds all the power. Whatever the point of perception is what
Right.
holds the power.
Right. That's so interesting. I've heard a lot about the mirror theory, which is kind of a different way of saying basically the same thing, don't you think so?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It is exactly the same thing. I just say it a little bit differently
Yeah.
because that helps me to stay accountable to myself and take 100% responsibility for everything that's happening to me. If someone treats me in a bad way, I don't blame them for doing that. I go, oh, gosh, that person speaking to me like that makes me feel this way.
Mhm.
I wonder what's inside me that needs to be looked at.
Right.
I wonder what belief I have about myself that they're showing me so that I can fix it, because that's how we come back into our power,
Yeah. I've been going through that actually
right?
today even. What do you believe about that? Do you like, is
Today,
that what you
yeah,
really believe to be true? Because it is about that, it is about, do we believe that we have the capabilities of that, do we, that we can, like Joe Dispenza says, the best way to know what the future is going to be to create is to create it. I'm maybe not getting that exactly right, but something like that.
yeah, yes, yeah, very, very much that, yeah. No, no, absolutely, and we're so afraid of our own power, not in the spiritual way that, we sometimes talk about it, but rather if I'm the point of perception from which everything arises, that means I'm 100% responsible for everything that's happening to me and in the world around me,
Mhm.
then, God, that means that I'm actually really powerful. How scary is that initially?
Right.
That's scary. I mean, I'm not in my full power. I don't think it's a natural way for humans to be, because if we come into our full power in that way, we start moving into that God complex thing. And yet we all are God
Yeah.
when you look at it from that perspective.
Yeah.
So it's a fine line, and it's an experiment. And I think we go in and out of it, moments of power when we're in places where we feel we can be safe in our power, and then lots and lots of moments where we don't feel safe in our power because we have history of being knocked down from our you know from the truth of who we are.
Right.
If you spend your whole life people telling you that you're not who you think you are,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So,
Very
so
true.
we're turning that around. And in fact, when again, some of the early teachings of all that was that they used to hold the planet in their hands, in my hands, and go, it's time to turn it upside down. Really take every belief that you have and go, what's the opposite of that belief? Well, that's more likely to be true at this point,
Yeah.
right? So I believe that I'm not enough. Well, the actual truth is that I am enough,
Oh, absolutely.
and start trying to live into that instead.
Yeah. And now, could you explain about the God complex a little more? Because I know that there are going to be people who are wondering, like, what does that mean exactly? And I feel like I understand what you mean, but I'd just like to hear you say it.
Well, I don't know what it is supposed to mean, but for me, what it means is that, you know, there are people who can get to the point where they are so fully in their power that their ego starts to twist that
Mhm.
so that they become someone who commands over people instead of serves people.
Mhm.
I hope that makes sense. I've never said it
It
that way
does.
before.
I think it's perfect.
I guess, I've got that book here somewhere, Power versus Force, because I read it all the time. And I bet this book is like 14, 15 years old. It's about the scales of consciousness, right? David Hawkins. the hidden determinants of human behavior. And Wayne Dyer talked about this book a lot, power versus force. And that's what I mean, right? Power is when you are in your healthy ego, and force is when you are in your unhealthy ego. And ego is not a bad thing. Don't get me wrong. It's just the word
Right.
that I'm using. But we can try to control the world by power, which means in being in our full power in a positive way, or we can try to control the world by force. Now, if there were a bunch of rich people out there controlling everything in the world and having all the money, they would be doing that by force.
Right.
That's the difference,
Yeah.
right? So the God complex is believing that you are above everyone else, because we all believe that God is above us
Right.
when we've just talked about how it's not. We're
Right.
an
No,
aspect of that.
that's right.
So when we think that God is above us, we give God all the power and we hold no power.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. And I think that, because I watch people a lot. Like I pay attention to if people's words are matching up with what their actions are, and what feeling the energy of their posts and their comments, and the way they carry themselves and things like that. I really pay attention. It's not a judgment as much as it's just a noticing, so that I can decide whether I want to be part of that energetic exchange, or if I just want to stay over here and be like in my own little energetic place. But because I do
That's
that,
called minding your that's called minding your own vibration.
yes, yes, exactly. But because I do that, I notice when people are behaving more in that God complex sort of way. And it's something that I really hope to always be mindful of, because I don't ever want to, I always want to be that person that's in the power, helping, serving mode, like Wayne Dyer, instead of in this way of, well, like you have to do it like this, like when you were mentioning about meditation, and you had to
Yep.
adjust what meditation meant to you, even though other people are like, well, you have to sit like this with your hands on your knees and your legs crossed and your back straight on this little cushion, and don't move, you know? And it's not that for everyone. It can't be that for everyone. Like I make twisted wire trees, and that is very meditative for me. Like I'll get into making one of those trees, and I'll like, be a couple hours into it, and I'm just like, before you know it, I have this little tree sitting in front of me. And it's meditative. And housework, sometimes I'll be, feel a little stressed out or whatever, and I will clean the crap out of the house, and it's very meditative and therapeutic for me, even though I'm not just sitting there. So I love that you said that, and I hope that people listening to this will take that on and realize that it doesn't have to look one certain way, that you can make it be what you need it to be.
Yes, yeah. And I think I mentioned that I had a 1-year-old when I got divorced. So as a single mother, I raised my second child, so he's still with me, 17 years younger than his brother. I had a big gap between them. But so I raised him while I was going through all of this awakening. So I had to find ways to do things that were different. And one of the ways that I used to do it was to wash the dishes. When I washed the dishes, that was my meditation.
Yeah.
Life is a meditation. And we really, if we can really take that on board and come back to that, what it simply means is to just be mindful of what you're doing in every
Yes.
moment. Be in the now moment and be mindful of what's going on around you. Feel the earth breathing when you become present. It's about becoming present in this moment, right here, right now. Stop trying to get to something in the future and stop trying to change what happened in the past.
Yeah.
Just be
Which,
here.
yes. And it's impossible to change the past anyway. We can't go backwards, where you hear about that your eyes are on the front of your head because you're supposed to be going forward, not backwards. And it,
Yeah,
it it is a
but
challenge for us humans to be in the present moment, though, because we live in this hustle bustle society. So what tips do you have, or maybe a suggestion for people who want to learn how to do that?
Well, it's more an analogy than anything else. When when I channel, when all that is talking to people, they used to, like, I would be like in a car, driving a car. My destination would be in front of me, a straight line. And they would explain to me that the minute you turn around and look in the back seat where the past is, you turn the steering wheel.
Yeah.
So you move away from your destination.
Mm,
And so I like to always remember that,
that's so good.
and put that image in my head, that it, because it's a natural thing, right? If you turn around and look in the back seat, try it the next time you're driving, but do it when there's no cars around you.
Right.
Just and you'll find that you'll move the wheel even slightly, but it will take you away from where you want to go. So know where you want to go and stop looking in the back seat to see the baggage that's in there. But really, the most important thing, and the whole first section of my book is focused on healing your trauma or
Yeah.
healing your hurts. I'm starting to move more towards using the word hurts because trauma is becoming such a buzzword,
Mm,
and nobody knows what anybody means by it because everyone's got a different expression, meaning for it. For
yeah.
me, trauma, as I said, is subjective, and it can be something as little as a parent in the shops saying no to you as a toddler.
Mm,
As a toddler, looking up to that person who cares for you and loves you, or should, the minute they say no to you, the energy of that makes you feel bad, first of all. And then because you feel bad, you make it mean something bad about yourself.
mhm.
That's just how it happens. So you start to believe, oh, well, I'm not lovable enough. She doesn't love me. She said no to me. That means she doesn't love me. So then you start living life as though that's a truth about you, that you're not lovable, having bad relationship over and over and over again, all these sorts of things. So the first section of the book, Raise Your Vibration, deals with how the most important thing to do is to be willing to recognize what you believe about yourself and also recognize the feelings that you hold within your energy field, and releasing the beliefs and the feelings, so the emotional body and the mental body, and
Yeah.
just cleaning those up, because every single one of those, what some people might call shadows, every single one of them that is released gets replaced by the light of your true self.
Mm,
And
I,
that's how you become the light change maker, right? By releasing. This is a daily thing for me, and I don't do it as a daily practice. It just happens daily. Once you're in the process of it, you notice a trigger, you notice what's going on with you, you sit for a moment, you take care of it, and then you move on. And then something else will trigger you. So you use triggers as gifts. I like to say that I chase triggers, or I chase tigers, I call them, because I'm silly like that.
I love that though.
But
That's
I chase
good.
triggers, or I did chase triggers. I don't feel that I need to anymore. They'll just, if they're there, they're there. But I chased them once I knew about them and knew how to fix them and knew how important it was to this planet. And I'm not talking about me, I'm talking about all of us, right?
Right,
That we
right.
do this, that we heal these parts of ourselves so that we can come back into our true power and become the being of light in human form, walking this planet on purpose and in service to our purpose and each other.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And it's so true, getting rid of all that gunk, just and it becomes something that you do recognize. I've noticed that in myself, and it's like, gosh, like I feel like it's been rapid fire for about the last 3 weeks now. It's been a real roller coaster ride. But at the same time, and we discussed this previously, you can get to the place where you are watching all of this fall away. And even though it doesn't feel good in the process, you still can look at it from your higher self and see all of the beauty that's happening. A friend of mine and I just meditated together a couple days ago, and in my vision, I saw just like I couldn't see it like really vividly, but could see people working in the background, helping with all of this stuff and keeping it moving forward and all of that. And I thought that was a really interesting vision. I couldn't see exactly who they were, but I could tell, like behind the scenes, all this work is being done to move you forward and make sure that you're
Yes.
solidly on your path and things are happening like there should.
Yes.
So it was really cool.
Absolutely. I absolutely love that because for me, when you talk about that, what I see is that this is exactly what the non-physical aspects of you are.
Mhm.
They're those parts of you that are here to help you evolve. I mean, there's a well-known expression that the universe is just wants to experience itself so it can expand.
Yes.
And we're part of that. This is exactly. So all the aspects of you in non-physical are also seeking expansion through you. So they're always there to guide you into that expansion.
Yeah. Yeah. So what would you say to people who don't want to experience that kind of part of things that doesn't actually feel good to us? Because that is part of the process. It doesn't always feel like, woo, this just happened. I just dropped something out. Yay. It doesn't feel like that. It's like, oh gosh, a sucker
Well,
punch sometimes.
yeah, no, absolutely. And I think there's a little saying that I say, and again, everything that I say is stuff that I've learned
Yeah.
from all that is. I've never taken my teachings from anyone but source. Except I did a Reiki course once because I thought I was supposed to. You know, um, only to be told, but you've already got it. You don't need to do a course for it. We've all got it. We've all got it. We're
Yes.
already all of these things. Um, so oh gosh, I lost it now. What was it? What was it? What was it? That thing I was going to say. Yes, here it is. Start. The more you do it, the less you will have to do it.
Mm,
Does that make sense?
yes.
Because the minute you start doing it and you start cleaning those things up, eventually you will get to a point where you don't have to consciously look at it anymore. I don't consciously look at it anymore. I don't take time. I don't go, oh gosh, I've got to go into this thing that's going to feel revolting. I'm going to cry more than likely because I do.
Yeah, I do too.
Because I've got a lot of suppressed sadness and grief inside me, as most of us do, particularly women, I find. Um, so the more you look at it and let it be seen, because that's really all it wants to do. It's like a little child at the swimming pool, right? A little boy, for instance, diving in and screaming, Mom, look at me, and getting out and doing it. Mom, look at me, getting
Yeah.
out and doing it again. Mom, look at me. It just wants your attention. So give it your attention. The more attention you give it, eventually it won't need your attention anymore,
Yeah.
right? So the
Great.
more you do it, the less you'll have to do it.
Yeah. And
And I
don't we
used to
love
say that
that?
to myself. I used to say that to myself and I didn't really believe it. But where I am today, it's been true for me. I see that now, that that is actually true because there's no efforting to it.
Yeah.
Once it just becomes a habit, just like any other habit,
Yeah.
but it's a purposeful habit.
What a great habit too, to be cleaning up that mess, and getting that out of there so that the light can come in more. I love that. That's so beautiful. So
I feel
tell
like I
me,
need to say,
go ahead.
sorry, I just feel like I need to say one thing about that. What I'm hearing is that it's not even an efforting. It should not even be an efforting. It's an asking and a receiving.
Mm,
Asking the non-physical aspects, whatever you believe them to be, to help you to do this, and it will just naturally start to happen as long as you're prepared to be present with it when it shows up.
mhm. And that's the key right there, right? To be present with it. Because a lot of
Yeah,
times people don't want to look at it, but that's what we need to do. That's the magic.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So
Sorry,
tell
I interrupted.
No, you're fine. I want you to say what you, especially if it's that divine message that we're we're getting to. So How do you work with people? Because I know people are curious because we've talked about what you do. So how do you work with people? Do you do it in group settings? Do you do one-on-one? What is your
Well,
programs,
there's an
whatever?
interesting answer to this, and that is this. I do whatever I'm told to do. By that, what I mean by that is that I just intuitively tune into what wants to be happening in this moment. Right now, I've literally last night announced that I'm about to start doing some group online sessions that will be very low priced, where there'll be a what I'm calling a light seat. So one person will be called forward to talk about what's going on with them. We'll do the work with them. What I mean by that is that we will enter into their energy field and become one with them and clean up what needs to be cleaned up and provide whatever guidance needs to be given and lift their frequency. But that will serve the entire room because that's what happens, right? When
Yes.
we all gather, it becomes the answer for everyone. People's quite amazed all the time. Like, I didn't even have to ask my question and you answered it. And I'm like, well, of course you asked, so the answer has to come. That's
Right,
how it works. That's the law of attraction. That's the true law of attraction. When you ask, it is given. So, of course, if you turn up into a room where someone is willing to release their own ego and become the pipeline through which your answer comes, then your answer is going to come through someone else's question or
right.
just through whatever words are spoken. That's a natural thing. It's not just me. We all do that, but we don't really recognize it. I recognize it now
Yeah,
only
yeah,
through people show it to me. Because for me, even to talk about it, I'm like, it's so it make it's stop talking about how wonderful you are, and yet I'm not. I'm just trying to express an answer to the question, right?
right.
Because in that place of between wanting to tell everyone how amazing it is to work with me, but also not wanting to sound like I'm fond of myself, egoic, in other words, right? I live
Right.
in that constant battle there, as we all do.
Yeah.
And then move beyond that and just be willing to say, this is what I do. So I literally just announced that because it's been, we've been discussing it. We've been discussing it for a number of weeks now. And last night I went, right, it's time. I also am moving towards doing one-on-one private retreats where it's just me and the person, or me and one or two people as a group, people who know each other. And we just spend days together doing the healing work, doing the guidance, raising the frequency, talking about all manner of things, whatever, because it literally is a conversation about everything. It's about business, it's about life, it's about purpose, it's about the past and healing it. There's no, people say, you're a business coach or a life coach. Well, no, there's no separation between those things for me.
I agree with
And
you.
I often say for me, my business is my isness,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's awesome. That's
So,
so good. Well, it is all
you
joined
know,
together and it impacts one thing impacts the other. I mean, you look at these people who are
absolutely.
like these in these power business positions and they're so frantic and they have all this stress all day long and they walk in their house and that affects everything. Their
Yeah,
kids can't get 5 minutes of their time because they're on their phone because it carries over and it's just a big mess. So it
they've got
is all
their third
joined
wife,
together.
and yeah. Yes, exactly. So, and that's really the people that I love to help in these environments where it's just I create a container, a frequency
Yeah.
container. And sometimes I'll decide to open up like a 3-month coaching thing. I'm doing one of those at the moment because I felt drawn to it.
Yeah.
So really, I like to think that I'm answering someone's calling, and then I just allow myself to give them what I intuit is what they need. So it's ever changing for me. And I've come to realize no matter how many business coaches tell me that I should do it this way, that I should have a 3-month program, or I should have a course, or I should have this, I can't do any of that. I
Yeah.
cannot do it, because that would mean that I've constrained myself into a box.
Right.
And the universe doesn't want to be in a box.
Right.
You can't be in a box if you're serving authentically and spiritually, because you're here to respond to the calling of someone. So you can't know the answer to that calling until they call,
Right.
right? So
Right.
that's how I try to, it's been a struggle for me, honestly. It's been a struggle because I've tried to do the things that you're supposed to do. I have never made as much money as I would like to make. Sometimes I have made less than I need. And yet I know that this is the way that I'm here to do it, and I have to keep doing it this way.
Right.
And I know also that nothing's ever going wrong.
Right.
So
And it's about
everything is
evolution,
perfect.
and that's why and I've mentioned this before, but that's why I named my YouTube channel and what I did. And that's why I named my business what I did, because it is about that eternal evolution. We don't start out here and stay here. And quite frankly, I don't give a rip what people say I should be doing. And I know you don't either, but we do look at that because people, that's the barometer, right? What you should be doing, what everyone else is
Yeah.
doing. And
Yes.
I've tried so many things over or started. I shouldn't say I tried, because my Stephen Harefield would get on to me for that. He's like, you don't try, you either do it or you don't do it. But so I've
You do
started
right.
so many things over the years, just since I've been in this coaching thing. And it just keeps on moving. It's moving and changing all the time. And, I know people look at it like she doesn't even know what she's doing. My soul knows, and that's what I started doing. I started asking my soul, what do you need from me today? What do you want me to do today? And sometimes I'll have these plans for the day, and then I'll end up not doing any of it. I'll go make art instead or whatever, because it's like where that energy needs to go that day. And when people look at it from the outside, they're like, well, you're shirking your duties. You need to be doing this and that. No, I need to be doing what my soul says, because those are the things that are in alignment for me right then.
I love that. I absolutely love it. And it's exactly what my experience has been. I mean, from day one of doing this work, I knew that I was here to do it. And so I hired a coach who very quickly said to me, you can't channel for clients. By the way, she's now a channel.
Oh my goodness.
10 years, not even 13 years later, she's a channel. In fact, it was a few years after I worked with her and she told me I couldn't channel for clients, that it was too weird and people wouldn't like it and da 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 da. 3 years later, I got an email from her that said, oh, I'm starting a new program and then I'll be channeling. And I'm like, okay.
Oh, interesting.
But back in those days, I mean, I even had a client who was very much in the corporate world, who literally wrote a program for the rest of the day after I had a session with her. She wrote this program, which she now and literally started offering it, which she now has made millions of dollars from. And she would not give me a testimony because she didn't want people to know that she did woo-woo things. Right? So we're still in that. We're still in that thing of you're supposed to make money from business and you're supposed to care about how much money you make, which, don't get me wrong, money is important,
Sure it is.
but it's not the be all and end all of my life. My soul and my work comes before that. And it's nice to have money as a value and all those things, but by making money your God, you are devolving, because we're moving beyond that.
Yes.
And so, the world that we live in, the world of capitalism, where we're holding so tight to it because we see a millionaire and we think that, oh, I could be that millionaire. So we hold tight to that way of thinking
Mhm.
because there's always this thought, well, maybe it could be me one day. And we need to stop doing that. We need to stop. Maybe it could be me one day. And the first step towards that is to charge $100,000 for this thing that I'm doing,
Right.
which isn't worth it, right?
Right.
But people will pay for it because I'm very clever at marketing or whatever.
Mhm.
We're doing it all the wrong way. We've got to
Mhm.
stop doing that. We've got to start just being genuine and authentic and living life, not to worship at the God of money, but to live life,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yep. And
Getting a
experience
bit preachy.
and in that way.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And experience who we truly are.
Mhm.
And we've so lost it. We've so lost it as a humanity.
Yeah.
But there are people like yourself and many, many others, and everyone who's watching and listening, that we're starting to come back.
Yeah. It's beautiful. I love it. I mean, like, I love watching it happen and seeing people step into themselves. I don't even want to say their power, but step into themselves and realize that they are that. We are that. There's not a separation, and one person isn't better than the next. But we humans, we always want to whip that ruler out and say this
Well,
person's
but
further
that's that
along than I
paradigm.
am. Pardon me?
Exactly, but that's that paradigm, right? That's that paradigm of what you could call capitalism, really. The world that we live in is based on hours of work and money that we make.
Mhm.
And that's the thing. And because the people down the bottom are always looking up and going, I could be that one. I could be the one at the top. So they keep perpetuating that same system
Right.
because they think there's a top and a bottom. And if they're at the bottom, they want to get to the top. But that's just, that's not reality anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really not. And it's all relative, because what looks like success to one person doesn't to the next, and I use my podcast as an example of that, because I haven't been doing this that long and I don't have a million viewers yet. That's coming. But, I pay attention and I see, so I feel like I'm already successful, and plus I have met so many amazing people and had so many amazing conversations. And I know I'm only going to have more. And some people I have back on my podcast a second time or and maybe a third, who knows how many times they'll be back. I just got started doing this. So, but it's incredible and I'm learning every single time. And I feel like that's what is so important for people who are listening to know is you don't ever know it all. We're all learning. This is an experience we're growing through every single day, no matter if we've been doing this 6 months or 60 years, we're still learning. And I always tell people if
Uh,
someone acts like they know everything, then run, just run because you don't, you don't want, and
uh,
we learn from each other no matter how, like if I've been exploring my spirituality for a really long time, I'm going to learn something from someone who just started. I'm going to, they're going to teach me something. And that's what I believe where we need to really understand that we're all doing this together.
and that comes back to the oneness, right? So if we're all one, then you're here serving me, I'm here serving you, I'm giving you what you need, you're giving me what I need. We're not getting it wrong.
Yeah.
There's no you know more than me and I know less than you, or I know more than you and you know less than me. It's you're here to provide me with an experience that I need to have in order to become more, to
Yeah.
expand. So that's what we need to start to realize. So again, it's about coming back into the truth of oneness, that we are all one. and that everything we do, just like birds, right? You know how birds fly in, and there's those birds that when they all
True.
go together, and the fish as well, schools of fish. Human beings are exactly the same, but we've forgotten that. This
Yes.
is quantum entanglement, right? Their quarks are entangled, so therefore they all follow the same. But humans are exactly the same. We are a piece of
Yes, we
nature,
are.
just like everything else. And we've separated ourselves from that.
Mhm.
So what
Yeah.
we do, what you and I do, what other people like us do, is not magic. It is actually nature.
Yeah.
I can read people's minds and become one with their energy because I'm remembering that I'm one with them and
Yeah.
I'm acting as though I'm one with them. There's no magic about that. And yes, of course, it's also very magical.
It is. It's so magical. It's so cool. It really is. And I
Yeah.
love it. I love that you've shared so just transparently with us today because I think it's so beautiful and some of the things you've said have really resonated with my soul. So I'm so grateful that you came and had this chat with us today. I would love for you to tell people where they can find you. So if they want to experience whatever it is your soul says you're offering in that moment, that they can take part in that.
Sure, absolutely. So my website is of www, they all start the same, and Alexon, so it's just my name, and alexon.com. And you can always find me on Facebook as well. I've been around Facebook since it became public. And so I'm well established there and I love it. It's my comfort zone for social media. I try the others, but I can never, I always come back to Facey. So you can find me there. Of course, it's just my name once again. So there's a page and there's a profile, but there is also a group that I have called Frequency First. And there is a beautiful thing that I'm offering in there at the moment. I don't know whether you've experienced it yet. It's called Dreamweaver. It's the very first step in creating the life that you really want to be living. It's a little AI tool that I somehow magically created, even though I don't know how to create an AI tool. I decided that I wanted to, and I pulled from the source field
Yes.
and allowed myself to know how to do it because we are all that is, all that was, and all that ever will be. It's all available to us when we allow ourselves to receive it. So I did. I asked and said, I want to create this thing. And then it all presented in front of me. And I figured out, well, somehow I knew how to do it. And I created this tool. And it is, I mean, so far over the last few days, there's been 100 people use it, loving it, creating this compelling story of the life that you want to create for yourself as the first thing to pull you towards that.
Yeah.
So and come into the group and grab a copy of that or grab it and start using it, and then we can go from there.
Yeah, that sounds cool. And I do have it in my messages, but I haven't used it yet. Like I said, I've been on this roller coaster, so I was like, I need to just put that on pause for a second. So, but I am going to get to that because I'm very excited about trying that out. So,
Oh,
and I'm so,
fabulous. I can't wait.
yeah. And after I do it, we'll have another conversation and we'll talk about it and how it worked and for me specifically. And maybe we can share the link in the description box when we have that episode. So, but thank you so much. And if you'll send me all your links, I'll drop them in the description box below this video and that'll be there for everyone to have easy access to. So,
Fabulous.
okay,
Wonderful.
cool. And thank you everyone for
Thank
tuning
you.
in to another episode of Spiritually Speaking. I know you've enjoyed it. And as much as I have, it's been a wonderful conversation. Thank you again. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my beautiful channel. And don't forget, we do have the Spiritually Speaking Facebook group, I will put the link in the description box below the video as always. And I will talk to you soon on the next one. I love you all.